Good evening, everybody. Welcome to London Station. Flirting already? Why wait? Why wait? Welcome to London Station. It's a Discovery Course stream. If you're new to the channel, we do all sorts of stuff. We do actual plays. We've got an Astro Prisma actual play we do on Saturdays. We have Discovery Course streams like this one, which is when we take a product, usually an RPG product. We take a look at it, dive in a little bit. We've done quite a few for Legend in the Mist. We looked at Defy the Gods one day. Pumpkin Spice, when that was backing. Got a lot of attention for that one. And then sometimes we do a little thing called the London Hour. And that's where we take on topical topics, I guess. And so far, that's been actually a really fun series. We've done those occasionally on Sunday mornings. We did romance in RPGs. We did lone wolves in RPGs. And recently we did violence in RPGs, which was, I think, a pretty fascinating topic. I've got some ideas for other ones along that series. But that's what we do. We hang out here. What if you don't want to battle the zoo? What is the tagline they use in their streams? If you want to battle the zoo, you've got to roll for combat. So I guess you don't have to roll for combat. That's what that means. That's the takeaway here. Today, we are looking at Battlezoo Eldamon, which is a product made by Roll for Combat, Stephen Glicker and Mark Seifter, and associated freelance writers and artists. Pretty cool little operation. They make supplementary materials for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and they've also branched off into kind of some other little self-publications with making materials for Shadow Dark RPG, and I'm not sure the status of it because I'm not really following it, but Professor Dungeon Master's, what's it called? Deathbringer. So they're a well-known and established third-party name in the TTRPG space. And this product today, Eldamon, came out about 2 years ago. Was one of the projects, I guess, that Stephen Glicker had always wanted to make, is to figure out a way to do a monster capture-like type system in people's favorite RPG systems. And so it blends elements of that. It has a little bit of elements of like what it would be to be an element bender from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And this first product they came out with had 13 different elements to it, with a potential to grow to 20. And as of yesterday, they just launched an expansion Kickstarter to bulk it out even more. And if that one goes well, the plan is, so they say, to make a third product, which is going to cover the other 7 elements that were not covered in this product. So we'll get into what those are and how that works. It is basically a ground-up new magic system that plugs into Pathfinder 2nd Edition or 5th Edition Dungeons & Dragons. I know absolutely nothing about 5e, so if you're here looking for that, I apologize. We're going to be looking at Pathfinder today. I do have the book. I just don't have access to it right now, unfortunately. So I was hoping I'd have it back in hand by the time I did this stream, but, you know, life. So yeah, yesterday the Eldamon Legends Kickstarter launched, and they are going to be giving out expansions for all of the existing elements with additional Eldamon creatures, legendary creatures, which are like unique one-offs. Pathfinder 2 has the unique tag, for example, so think of it like that. More powers for each of the elements, and then a whole bunch of other, swag. They've got minis and cards and dry erase cards and dice sets and GM screen and tokens and all that good stuff. So pretty sure I put the link in the video description, but if I didn't, there it is right there in chat. Check it out. They're at 120K out of a $10,000 goal. So word on the street is that it's looking good for them to make that third product. And again, we'll talk about what elements are going to be coming up for that. I have a little bit of experience using this book. It's weird to call it a book. It's weird to call it a supplement. It's almost its own entire system. Yes, it's modular and it plugs into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but the depth and breadth and width that they went into putting this together is really astonishing. And they put a lot of time into the playtest. I guess it would be now 3 years ago is when they were actively in playtest. And the elements that are, a part of the system are some that you'd expect, your air, your earth, your fire, but they have air, darkness, death, earth, electricity, fire, force, ice, life, light, mind, water, wood. And then they have some universal powers. But I want to see if I can find this quickly, and I probably won't, but that's okay. The other ones that may be coming, if this Kickstarter does well, would be body. They're in order here alphabetically, so let me just see which other ones weren't mentioned. Metal, music, poison, space, spirit, and time. So pretty cool stuff. Each one of these, too, as we'll see, has basically its own little sub-mechanical system to it. Yes, actually. So they were coming close to releasing the first Eldamon product. And right around that time is when the OGL crisis happened and Paizo had to pivot like really hard, really fast. And it was blessedly like right before they went to print, shortly before they went to print with Eldamon. And so they actually were able to release even the original book from 2 years ago is remaster, already compatible. So it's all the current everything language system of Pathfinder 2, which is great. And then of course Legends and everything going forward will be the same. The other thing about the Kickstarter is they're doing it like their if you're familiar with Roll for Combat and their Battlezoo line, they have their like year of line. So year of monsters, year of legends, year of whatever. And so they release material every month, and that's what they're going to be doing with the 13 elements. I think they do like a freebie one at the beginning, or maybe it's a double one at the end. So it's because there's 13 and there's 12 months in a year. So they are starting in, and I think they even announced the orders somewhere. It's probably on the backer page. But starting in April already. Is that right? That can't be right. Is that right? I'm going to scroll through really quick, and I'll bring up the page if we need to. Yeah, okay. Legends release schedule. Let me bring this up. I don't think I have Chrome added as a source yet, so this is just the PDF. And we're not going to do a complete read-through of the PDF because, you know, you gotta buy products. That's how that works. So bear with me while I fumble through this. I thought I had a Chrome source already. Do I, though? Do I really? And this, and that, and where is it? There. Professional. Let's see, you don't need to see my bookmarks. Move that up. So this is the release schedule for the expansion. So July, fire. August, water. September, earth. October, air. November, wood. December, ice. January, electricity. February, force. Sorry, Logan, there's a spider there. March, life. April, death. May, light. June, darkness. July, mind. And then they'll compile them all into a final book, and they'll go to print with that. So pretty cool system that actually keeps people, you know, excited and engaged throughout the entire process. The only bummer that I have is my character that uses this system is a Force Elemental avatar, which means I don't get new stuff to play with until February of next year. On the other hand, that's when my birthday is, so that works. That works. So anyway, there's that. Oh, wow. I kind of went right into this, and I forgot that, you know, we always start my streams with a song, so I got to do that still, too. Got way ahead of myself. At least it's not a real spider like I had last stream. I wonder if he still lives on the light. I don't see him. Anyway, I'm sure he's doing his thing. Doing his thing. So, without further ado, let's sing a little song, and then we'll go into talking about Eldamon. And I don't have a specific structured plan. I figure we'll go over some of the overview for people who aren't familiar. But really, I'm interested in just talking about what attracts me to the product, what I'm interested in about the product. And then I'd like to look at, with you guys, a couple of the elements, because I haven't even studied the elements very deeply. To be honest, I'm like, I'm using force powers. I'll learn about force powers. And then I've learned about... Derek from Knights of Last Call has done a couple streams on Eldamon, I think 2, and in his first one he looked at how the fire powers worked, so we won't look at that. He did a stream looking at the life element, which is really cool, actually. It's kind of a shame that I'm not going to look at it today. The life element is like a proactive healing. It's all about putting out temporary HP shields and everything like that, so it makes you feel like a more active healer than just reactive and always just, I guess I'll cast 2 action heal again and move. So anyway, let's see. We'll sing a little song here. This is Crossfire by Brandon Flowers of The Killers, and it goes a little like this. There's a still in the street outside your window. and you're keeping secrets on your pillow. Let me inside, no cause for alarm. I promise tonight not to do no harm. Yeah, I promise you, babe, I won't do you no harm. And we're caught up in the crossfire of heaven and hell, and we're searching for shelter. Lay your body down, lay your body down, lay your body down. Watching you dress as you turn down the light. I forget all about the storm outside. Dark clouds roll their way over town. Heartache and pain came a-pouring down like hail, sleet, and rain. Yeah, they're handing it out, and we're caught up in the crossfire of heaven and hell, and we're searching for shelter. Lay your body down, lay your body down, lay your body down. Lay your body down, lay your body down, lay your body down. Tell the devil that he can go back from where he came. His fiery arrows drew their bead in vain. And when the hardest part is over, we'll be here. And our dreams will break the boundaries of our fears. The boundaries of our fears. Oh, 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 lay your body down, lay your body down, lay your body down. Lay your body down, lay your body down, lay your body down. Next to mine. There you have it. Crossfire by Brandon Flowers. Okay, let's talk about RPGs. As always, thank you for indulging my need to sing on stream. All right, where do we want to start today? Again, like I said, I don't have a super big plan. Obviously, the inspirations for Eldamon as a product line is your monster capturing, your Pokemons, your Digimons, your whatever. Hold on, I gotta fix my camera. It's in the wrong spot. Let's put it here, and there I am. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. So, there are 2 classes to this book. And there's also a bunch of lore about the Eldamon themselves. So there is a particular conception for how these interact with the world. And, whether you use that or not, one thing that they did really well, and Mark Seifter has full writing credit on this book, so I'm sure it was him, is give you options and alternatives for like how you might have them show up in your world. And also, they've made a big point about this entire system that if it feels or seems like as a GM you're going to have a lot to manage because you're going to have your players like finding these creatures and befriending them and all that, it really is very lightweight on the GM. You can have the player entirely run basically their random table rolls to see if they come across a new Eldamon that they can try and befriend. And it's pretty cool. So we don't need to go too deep specifically into the lore because people who get this product may or may not use that lore. But it is here for you, and it's neat. Essentially, though, one of the core ideas is they wanted to address some of the kind of like problematic things that get glossed over with these monster capture training media franchises. Pokemon, of course, being, you know, like basically pit fighting. And, you know, sort of the non-consensual capture of the Pokemon. And it's like, oh, no, it's okay because you train with them and then you become their friends. It's like, maybe become their friends first. And so that's what Eldamon does, is it focuses on a friendship mechanic. Each particular type of Eldamon has a different way that you can befriend them. They have their own wants and things that they're after that you can try to bond with them with, and you role play that out. So it's a loose system, but that gets away from like the capturing of them and the containing of them in sort of like a little capture device, Pokeball, whatever it might be. And then as far as how they exist in the world, there's no limit to how many Eldamon a Eldamon trainer class can have. In fact, you don't even have to be an Eldamon trainer class to have an Eldamon companion. They're just not going to benefit you mechanically, so you can just role play them out as pets and friends and everything like that if you had a campaign that really went for it. So that's really cool. I love the thought, care, and attention that they put into addressing some of the problematic, the problematic aspects of some of these media franchises that get glossed over and you don't really think about them because it's all about the spectacle, right? But they're a thoughtful company, and I appreciate that. Especially having just had a stream recently about violence in RPGs. Eldamon themselves, when they battle as well, for them, they see it as a form of play. And they are these kind of ethereal creatures that phase in and out of reality. So that's another mechanical tool to keep somebody who has like 10 Eldamon from just flooding the battlefield and be like, well, I send out all 10 of my Eldamon and I instantly win. An Eldamon trainer is able to give their phase in reality to an Eldamon companion, and that becomes their battle form, and then they're able to battle on the grid just like a Pathfinder 2 character. And they have 3 primary ones that they basically prepare each day, and they can switch in between them. There's an action premium and a cost to doing that, of course. And if an Eldamon like gets knocked out, they run out of their little HP, you know, all the damage that they took gets moved over to the Eldamon trainer, and then the Eldamon trainer can summon a new one at that point. And it's all very particular about how that action economy works. But what else is the general stuff about how these guys work? I think that largely covers it. They do have different forms. So let's just go look at someone. I'll just pick this guy. So we have Sandit, the Sand Lizard Eldamon, and these entries, this is their pet form is what they're called. And then this is their full like evolutionary line. Hold on one second. Let me clean this up and make it bigger. So Sandit, Sanderma, and Sandrak is a single, you know, call it an evolutionary line. And this is more like Digimon or certain other styles where they don't permanently become the thing that they evolve into. They actually go back and forth. So when they're not actively fighting, they're in their pet form. When they're in battle mode, they're in their battle form. And if they're in a battle and you are of level 11 or higher, then they get to go into their, I forget what it's called. Maybe it'll say here. Yes, we have pet form here. Here's Sandit. Look at this little guy. And apparently they like skits and puppet shows. So it's like these are your little role play interactive things. They are cutesy, and you know you're supposed to kind of play up the fun, lighthearted element of them, as you can tell. You know, puppet shows are not inherently a Pathfinder 2 thing. Then you got Sanderma, and this guy's getting a little more serious. He's got a little, you know, cloud of sand around him, and that's his battle form. And then what do they call it? Oh, evolved form. And that's when, you know, he's now got a different head on his tail. Crazy stuff. But check this out. These guys are not like, they're not messing around. This thing weighs 2,000 pounds and is 9 feet 10 inches long. That's a beast. That's a big one. That's a big guy. So yeah, there you have it. These are like the little Eldadex cards. And these actually they're making these as cards for this newer Kickstarter. They're making decks for both the original line, this product, as well as the new and upcoming ones, and they're going to be wet erase. Dry erase, wet erase. They're going to be erasable, is what matters. And on the back side, if maybe we'll pull this up on the Kickstarter, but on the back side it has slots where you write down which active powers they have prepared. So it's pretty sweet. Okay, not only is Marshy going to have a third form, but none of us know what it is. Until Hippo's character Lala gets to level 11, we have no idea. And yeah, Hippo's good at keeping things close to the chest. When we played Girl by Moonlight, Hippo played the Unlikely Hero playbook, which is the one playbook that can't transcend until like a specific set of circumstances are met. And so it wasn't until the very end of the campaign that he revealed that Mila transformed into Prism and had this new art. And we were like, oh my God, it's amazing. Monocle or maybe a mustache? Maybe both. We don't know. So in our Pathfinder 2nd edition play-by-post game, New Dawn, which a lot of you know about, but if you're new to this video, you won't. One of our players is playing an Eldamon trainer, and they have a Boto, which is like the kind of dolphin-looking dude. Let me see if I can find Boto. Boto. Well, let's go to Mies first. He's got a Mies, whose name is Mousy. And then he's got a Boto right here, whose name is Fishy. And then his other Eldamon is, let me find it. This is Marshy. But Marshy has been reskinned into basically a walking literal marshmallow. And Marshy is the best. We all love Marshy. But mechanically, Marshy is using, I believe, using the Ankrup stats and powers and everything that go along with it. So, but you know, you guys get the gist, right? I mean, it's a game about basically doing Pokemon, but in Pathfinder, and different enough from Pokemon in mechanics and lore and everything that it's its own unique thing. But the battle form, like the evolved forms, get pretty sick looking. Check that out. You don't want to fight that guy. How big is this guy? 470 pounds, 9 feet tall. We got this goat. You know, how intimidating can a goat be? Let's find out. Yeah, look at this guy. He'll mess you up. All of our PCs would die for Marshy, except for Marshy wouldn't let us die. And Marshy would never let that happen. Also, 9 feet tall, giant goat. Crazy. Absolutely insane. It's a cool product, guys. It's cool. It's always been cool. It was cool when it first was being concepted. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it a lot. And we're not even into the mechanical parts about what make this cool, and that's where we're going to get to soon, I guess. Let's look at the befriending page. So this talks about how the different methods you can utilize to put this into your game, et cetera, et cetera. We kind of already talked about that. Really good sidebars always in Battlezoo products. They've done a really good job of like identifying and calling out corner cases and preemptively like giving you the answers that you might need. Shoefix is not an Eldamon fan, but it's okay. We can all be wrong about things. It's important for growth. Oh yeah, as far as like where you find these guys in the world, they're kind of just everywhere. Because they're these elemental creatures basically, and they're kind of inspired by Kami, and I know Mark Seifter said that they were based on Sfren as well, which is a Cosmere thing, or is it a Mistborn thing? I don't know. I think is it a Mistborn thing? I haven't read any Sanderson. Somehow I've never read a single Sanderson anything. Where they're these, you know, these elemental, like playful creatures that imbue themselves into even items. And there are rules. Actually, I should show you guys this stuff. So there's random tables like how to find them. If you find something that has a concentration of an element for some reason, like here's a little lava flow in a cave. I wonder if there's a fire Eldamon inside of it that you can randomly generate whether there is or not. Cosmere Stormlight. Okay, Stormlight. That's the one I was thinking of. So then you can do random element generation, etc. Roshar specific, not Mistborn. Okay, those words mean things. Thank you for educating everybody else and me, I guess. What else? Oh, this is, yeah. So they have a one table here for the random element if you only have the first 13, but they preemptively made a table for all 20. So even though they're not actively working, well, they might be actively working on this product right now, to be honest with you. This current Kickstarter is not for the remaining 7. They already put this table in place back when they first launched the product. So forward thinking. Then you can see what rarity that they'll have. There are different rarities for the different Eldamon. They have the Eldamon of a type share the same power sets. That'd be like their spell list. And so they're choosing from the same powers there. Oh, thank you. Oh, stop. It is cute though. You're not wrong. So they kind of have the shared spell list that they can all take from. How dare you? How dare you? Don't stunlock me in stream like that. God damn it. But individually, they also have special like little modifiers that change things. So, for example, let's go to the pot fox. That's the one that I have. Bam. This little guy. This little guy is imbued into my character who's an elemental avatar. So she doesn't send out like them as Pokemon. She has one inside of her and she uses its power set. And you can hand wave that. That's the other great thing about this book is if you don't like the cutesy little fuzzy fox guys and all this stuff and the bugs and the critters and the spider force elemental guys, whatever, just forget about it and just honest to God, get this book if you play Pathfinder 2 for the powers, for the mechanical powers. You'll see when we get to them. They are incredible. Where was I going with any of that? Why did I come over here to even look at this? Oh, I was talking about their special abilities. So, are they here? Yeah, they are here. Okay, so for example, the pot fox has this ability, Stir the Pot. And the force power set is all about relocating, like repositioning enemies, repositioning allies sometimes because you want to move your healer into a place where a 3-action heal will do a really good job. Very tactical and fun to play that I've enjoyed so far. But Amy, who's the character here, it says when your force powers allow you to reposition a foe 10 feet or more, you move them 5 feet more on top of that. So it's like there's different thresholds of where you can push even further. So I had a move that could move somebody 80 feet, and instead she was able to move them 90 feet because she got an extra 10 feet out of it. So pretty cool. Never stopping ever. Okay. All right, man. You do you. Absolutely. Killer point, Kalana. Reskinning the Eldamon as elementals makes for a great alternate summoner. And I think Mark even wrote in this book how you could play as an Eldamon. And with the calculations like increase health and stats by this much and whatever to keep them on par with an actual PF2 character. So not only that, but you could actually kind of just basically be an elemental avatar, but reskin yourself as the Eldamon itself. And there's a lot of great suggestions in the book about different ways to apply this system. So it's really cool. Really cool. Can meet the class fantasy of having a cadre of elementals to summon instead of the one Eidolon. Yes. Yeah. Because not only do you have the 3 that you prepare for the day, but there's functionally no limit on how many you can have. And by the time we get 20 elements out there, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool somewhere down the line. All right, I keep jumping all over the place, and I'm not sorry. Tables. Let's get back to somewhere we want to be. Let's go here. The tables in this are great. Random table for their age and their background. They're these elemental creatures. So like some of them could be young and inexperienced with the world. Some of them could be like ancient slumberer. This Eldamon hasn't been active since ancient times, and their understanding of the world is based on outdated information. They speak and understand one ancient, dead, or esoteric language. So they can speak, by the way, as well. Most of them don't know necessarily common. But as the Eldamon trainer, I think there's something about when you choose your languages, you can choose the languages that are spoken by your initial 3 that you start with. If your world doesn't have any such languages, use a language spoken by particularly long-lived ancestries such as Draconic. So there's just cool stuff here. And then there's basically this little variation table where, half of the time they're just normal. And then basically the other part of the time, and this was intentionally done to like facilitate the shiny Pokemon fantasy. In fact, I think it might even be... Isn't there one where it's like unusual color or like glowing? The Eldamon glows with elemental energy like a torch. Or it doesn't glow if they are a fire or a light Eldamon that normally glows. So just fun little things that, you don't even have to roll on this. You could just take these ideas and bring them in. But it's fun. It's fun to play with. It's cool. Appearance features. Smaller than normal, different eye color. Half and half body color. It's just like, why not? Why not put this fun stuff in there? Make them unique and stand out. Oh, look, you can be cute. The Eldamon's battle and evolved form look more like bigger versions of the Eldamon's pet form with any adjustments needed to grant them their form and evolution abilities. So maybe Marshy will just be just even bigger. Just a bigger marshmallow. That'd be funny. I should have checked with Hippo and grabbed the art for Marshy, so I could put it up. Is that a feat? It might be. It might be a feat. Murder bird. What is this about? This thing? That looks like a murder bird to you? Or are you referencing something else? Sparkly. This is the shiny, at least the FBT shiny, whatever, if you want to call it that. NMR. Personality quirks, like, it's just cool. Just cool stuff. Oh, what is this? I don't remember even reading this. Check for Eldamon's secret. 10% chance they have a secret. 1% chance they have two. The Eldamon was once friends with another hero or adventurer, whether famous or not. That's cool. Oh, look at this. I mean, this is like making your little anime episodes. The Eldamon made a promise to their last friend to perform one last task, and they still have yet to complete it. It's just sweet. It's sweet and earnest, and for the people who are just I don't like the cute stuff. It's fine, that's fine. But there's definitely something here that that makes for a really, I think, unique experience. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember you saying that somebody was that you ran the beginner's box for somebody, and they did an Eldamon trainer. Oh, they had that specific owl guy, and it wrecked. Okay. Yeah, I mean it does look like it means business. Can't deny that. All right, I've tried to not look at this guy. He's got stars in his eyes. Very London Station. In fact, it almost looks like the background seeping straight into his eyes. Look at that. What else have we got? Great 2-page art spreads in here. And then we're into the classes themselves. Now, I'm not Mr. Mechanical as far as Pathfinder 2 is concerned, so I can tell you, yeah, look, it's got 8 hit points, cool. Yeah, these are its saving throws, great. But I don't have the depth or breadth of context to compare this to other classes and say, oh, well, this is going to be great for this, and pair it with this archetype for your maximum efficiency, because I don't care. I'm glad that other people do, and you can find that content out there, and Godspeed, and have fun. Absolutely have fun and make effective characters. You can figure this out by sitting and studying it, but that's just not me. Anyhow, they follow the format of the pie. What is this art? This isn't even a guy, is it? Sorry, I got really distracted there. This little guy in the ribbon. I don't think that's an Eldamon. Unless it's supposed to be a stylized squirrelash. That's probably what it is. Anyway, so we're going to look at a couple of the feats and talk generally about how the Eldamon trainer works. You get proficiencies, you get your normal stuff, yada, 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 yada. You can switch your personal phase with them, phasing out of the material world so your Eldamon can phase in. So your character, wherever they're standing when they put their first one out, they end up kind of just staying static in the map unless you use this ability later on called Tug Conduit, where if the Eldamon gets too far away from you, they can kind of pull your ghostly form closer so that, if you need to be closer for any reason. But by and large, you don't actually use your character's character sheet that much, and a lot of people have done a lot of thinking and strategy about, well, which archetypes should you take then so that you can get use out of things like archetypes that focus in on recall knowledge, because you could do that when you're phased out. That's fine. You just won't be able to physically affect anything, so you're not going to be a cavalier or whatever. Anyhow, you begin with 3 of your choice. They can be common rarity. And you could adjust that, because otherwise you're going to see the same starting ones every single time. Or other Eldamon to which you have access, presumably determined by the GM. You can befriend additional Eldamon as normal. And during your daily preparations, you choose a number equal to 3 or your key attribute modifier, whichever is less. So never more than 3. But what this is saying is you can't put a dump stat into, what are they, charisma? I think they're charisma. No, it's wisdom. Is it charisma or wisdom? I should know this. Where do they put? Yeah, charisma. So you can't dump your charisma stat and still get 3 Eldamon. If you go low charisma, you might only have 2 Eldamon. And that means you have a smaller bank of usable hit points to throw out into the battlefield. So you should at least make it 3. At least make it 3. I'm just trying to highlight the key elements, because I know there are people who have a lot of questions about how this works. You share multiple attack penalties and actions, though you normally can't act anyway. You can use your hero points on their behalf. That's just, I think, common sense. They don't die, so here you go again. with the kind of like softening the fiction of this creature battling. They don't die. When they reach 0 hit points, they just phase out as if they were phased in and become unresponsive. I think Marshy's been knocked out a time or two. I think we've seen Hippo's character have their Eldamon knocked out. An Eldamon that takes any amount of damage recovers all their hit points after being phased out after an encounter, unless they were reduced to 0. I don't know if I knew this. Oh, it takes 1 minute. Okay, that's not a big deal. So if they get knocked out, they don't immediately go back to full. If they don't get knocked out, they do immediately go back to full. But I guess this is so you can't just like say, "Oh, I drop out of initiative," and then they heal to full, and then I drop back in. That's all that's trying to prevent. If they go out to a death effect, this is interesting. It takes longer for them to recollect, and they're out for an hour. Huh. Interesting. So you get your phase Eldamon ability. This is going to be your bread and butter for actually bringing them out. That's all you need to know. Read it yourself. It's good stuff. Here's terminology and key terms, all that stuff. We'll talk about how the powers work. And here's this tug conduit, which I know Hippo just used in our fight because we were on a big map. Your Eldamon tugs on the conduit they share with you, dragging you towards them. When your Eldamon uses tug conduit, you partially phase in and stride once. But you must move directly towards your Eldamon while striding. You are phased in enough to trigger reactions, take damage, and suffer other negative effects caused by your movement. And if you do so, your stride immediately stops. So you can't cheat it to say, like, I send my Eldamon over this, like, 15-foot pit, and then I use tug conduit to just float across. And they're like, no. No, we've thought of this. Lost and altered actions. This is all the nitty-gritty that if you guys are playing one of these, you'll need to know. And then there's calling, kind of a subclass. So a Eldamon Battler, I guess, gets Elemental Shield, which is a 1 action. You bring up a +1 AC Circumstance Shield. Not the worst thing. Eldamon Researcher, which I think they get a bonus to Recall Knowledge. Oh, they can choose Int as their key attribute instead of Charisma, so that's neat. Trained in Nature. You can use Int instead of Wisdom to roll Nature, because Nature is the skill you use for all Eldamon stuff. You can always roll Nature for initiative against Eldamon and Elementals. Kind of neat. +2 to recall knowledge about Eldamon. Yeah. And you get the I know this action. Even though you're phased out, making your mental processes move slowly in tune with the everlasting elements, when you see something you might know, you manage to borrow a bit of your phase and snap your mind into focus so you can shout out the information to your Eldamon and other allies. You recall knowledge and pass the information on. You can use this action even though you normally can't act while phased out. So this is your tactical ally type deal. All right. Now, I hope the stream didn't crash, but I'm seeing something concerning. So, nope, still looks live. Okay. Well then. That's good to know. All right, Eldamon Whisperer is basically you're like going hard into the friendship aspect of this. Bonuses to make friends with Eldamon. Bonuses to build your relationship with Eldamon. Basically, if you're going to do any sort of role-playing check with Eldamon, it's going to help. And then you get the You Can Do It ability. So your requirements, you're phased out. One of your trained Eldamon is phased in. Even though you're phased out, you call out encouraging messages to your Eldamon friend, assisting them in their next endeavor. Make a diplomacy check. On a success, they gain... So it's like aid. You can basically self-aid with an action, which is neat. It's actually really cool. I don't know which of these Hippo is. So, I don't know. All right. Oh, and here's another great sidebar, because there's a lot to this. I mean, there's 156 Eldamon, I think, in this book. Which is, there's 52 separate lines of Eldamon. So you have 52 of them you can choose from across 13 powers, which is a lot. But they're like, hey, listen, if that's just too much for you and you don't want to go through it, like, here, just take these starting sets. A balanced approach, a classic approach. Classic, of course, which is your fire, water, grass. Energetic, esoteric, simple, whatever they mean by that. You can figure out by looking at them. All right. Let's now talk about powers, and then we might jump over to the elemental avatar, and then we might jump back to the Eldamon trainer. The way the powers work is quite well. So let's get into it here. So they are not spells, but it does say powers are magical abilities. They require a significant amount of concentration. Effects that prevent magic, like, anti-spell casting, spheres, whatever it might be. Those that prevent you from casting at all, prevent you from using powers. So they're different but similar enough that you can't just cheese your way through anything like that. Et cetera, et cetera. They all have the concentrate tag trait. Yes. So the idea is that you kind of have like a hotbar, almost like a, I guess like a MOBA. Am I using that right? I don't know things. MMOs are what I think of. But you have your hotbar of abilities, and you have a certain amount of powers you can prepare any day. And like you would think, okay, like spell slots, but you can get them back. You can cycle through them. In fact, the whole system is built around this idea of cycling. So when you start out, you start with 2 active powers, 1 reaction power, and 1 refresh power. So reaction powers are exactly what they sound like. They grant you the use of a power as a reaction to a specific trigger, and each element has a different one. And then presumably with Eldamon Legends, we might see more of them, so you might see more choice. Otherwise, everything at level 1 in the Eldamon starter book here, everybody has the exact same loadout, because there are only 2 actives, 1 refresh, and 1 reaction. So that's the reaction power. The active powers are what you might think of as your normal spell slots. I'm going to do a thing that's going to do some damage, or I'm going to, if I'm an ice elemental avatar, I'm going to apply some frozen condition to somebody and slow them down, whatever it might be. And then your refresh power, as you tick through these powers, you basically like cross them out or mark them as cast or whatever. And I should say also, Roll for Combat does give you Path Builder JSON files that you can upload into Path Builder and use. And there are some small quirks that don't translate over to the Path Builder system just because the coding doesn't work and line up. I think really the only one is if you're an elemental avatar and you use Hand Wraps of Mighty Blows with your potency runes, that doesn't automatically carry over to the elemental power, so you have to remember to add it yourself. But other than that, it works pretty well. So you go through these and you cast them, and once you run out of your powers, or if you decide maybe the other power you have active is not useful in this fight or in this situation, you can use your refresh power. And your refresh power is going to have some small effect that's thematic to your element, and then it's also going to basically light all your elements, all your powers back up, so that you can go through them again. So it's a cyclical play cycle, and as a result, a lot of the powers are actually pretty high on the power curve. So they are a good class at like hitting hard and fast, the elemental avatars and the Eldamon, because they use the same powers. Because they have to have that downtime somewhere, turn 3, turn 4, where they're going to have to recharge. So for prolonged battles, they really kind of even out the curve of their effectiveness. And sometimes powers just don't apply. I was in a situation where I just chose poorly my loadout for the big time shard fight that we were in. And there were moments where I was like, these powers aren't really going to do me any good right now. So I ended up going more for like a power attacks refresh, power attack refresh, power attack refresh, just to keep that cycle of damage going. And that's fun to me, and it's engaging because it means that my choices are mattering in the middle of a combat, and I appreciate that a lot. A lot of customizability as you level up and you start to get to choose more and more powers. Every choice you make is another choice of something you didn't take, and so they do get kind of more diverse as you go. So that's generally how powers work. There's little caveats here and there, things that Mark is smart enough to make sure that you don't break things like is it elemental surge? Yeah, so this elemental surge thing, I've gone into the Discord at Roll for Combat, and other people have as well, and we're like, so what's the point of this again? And it's basically like if you would be precluded from using a power on your turn because of circumstances, like I need to stride twice to get away from something and that doesn't leave me enough actions to use a power, you can do this instead, and basically it'll tack on a bonus effect to the next time you use a power on your next turn, so that you didn't like blow your whole turn, kind of, you know what I mean? So he's got a lot of smart stuff that he put in like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff in this book about weaknesses and resistances, because if you are playing a fire elemental avatar and you go up against something that's like resistant or immune to fire, like what do? You just say, sorry guys, I guess I'll just sit on the sidelines. So there's little ways around that. You can do like, you could take universal damage powers, would be one way to do it, or there are feats that let you bypass things that should be immune or resistant. You can just ignore that. But they've really thought it through quite a bit. And then you've got this page, which is so great. I know Derek showed this on his stream about Eldamon probably 2 years ago at this point. But there are like weaknesses and defenses, just like you would have in like a Pokemon type chart situation. Because these can all be their own damage types. If you're doing Eldamon versus Eldamon battles, like I thought it would be cool at one point to do like an Eldamon League campaign, or not even a campaign, but just like Eldamon Arena. I can't call it that because I think that's what their stretch goal is called. Stretch goal, they announced that they're doing like a war game mini game kind of a thing, which they streamed about it today. I didn't tune in, so I didn't get plugged into that. But you have all these weaknesses and resistances and so on and so forth. And then this is also really cool because the way the powers operate, they tend to lean more towards different elements of playstyle: control, offense, defense, and debuff. And each element is better at certain things than others. So when you're choosing how you want to build out your team, your starting team, or if you're choosing your element as an elemental avatar, you're like, well, I like the idea of darkness, but I want to be offensive, and this is not going to give me that. So they're really great about presenting that here. They'll make the same thing, I'm 100% sure, if and when they make those last 7 elements, and it'll be interesting to see how those spec out as they go. Also, there's a complexity tag here too, because some of these are actually considerably more complex. In fact, wood has got a little bit of a reputation for being quite fiddly if you're not using like a VTT or Foundry module or something like that. But we can talk about why that is later. So I think this is really neat. Really cool. Force is really high in control, not so great in offense, which is surprising because I feel pretty offensive when I use it. Decent in defense, and it's actually low. What is that, a value of 2? So it's a 5 in control and a 2 in offense, defense, and debuff. So it's pretty balanced, I guess you would say. Yeah, so that's a really fun page. And then we're into the powers themselves. So where else? I want to jump around a little bit more, give you guys even more whiplash than I already have. We don't need to look at that anymore. Let's go to the avatar and see what that's got for us. So again, you got your stats and your proficiencies, and that's fine. You're all smart. You can figure that out. But the idea is the Eldamon within you grants you incredible powers based on your element. They are a special type of magic ability, different from spells. We've read that already. You use powers to battle your foes, and you do the same cycle to refresh the reactions and the power powers, the active powers, I think they're called. So it's really that straightforward. And then it all becomes about the elements you choose. And of course, you've got feats, and they get the elemental shield for free. The Eldamon trainer, only one of the subclasses get it, but the elemental avatar gets this just straight out the gate. The other thing that's really neat about them is they're not using weapons, really. They're not a weapon using class because they're kind of a blaster caster in a way, a cyclical blaster caster. And so things that require a lot of free hands actually go well with an elemental avatar. And the fact that they can summon a shield. Do you have to have a free hand for this? I don't think you do. Yeah, you don't even have to have it. And every element as well, when you use elemental shield, has an additional little rider. And I think the force one is like, if they miss, and they miss explicitly because of the +1 from the elemental shield, I think you get to reposition them 5 feet. Which is really cool. This almost never comes up. But if something comes in, let's say they've got their 3 actions. Something comes in, stride 1 action, strike 1 action. They miss, and then you push them 5 feet back, and now they can't hit you a second time. Like, they don't get their map attack unless they step forward and re-engage, or if they have reach. But you know what I mean. It's cool. There's a lot of cool little things like that. We had a fight with these like zombie bears, and for whatever reason, I think I must have been doing a refresh, but it was already engaged in melee with me, and I did my refresh power, and I just stood there knowing it was gonna like beat the crap out of me the next turn. But it did its first hit me, triggered my reaction power as a force user, and that reaction power made them make a fortitude save against me. It failed, and I got to push it 5 feet back, and since it was a zombie, it was permaslowed, so it only had 2 actions, so I basically just negated an entire attack just with my reaction. It was great. It's great fun. And then we realized they were slow, and then we yakety-saxed ourselves all over the battlefield until we picked them off. Good times. But there's all sorts of crazy stuff in here. Some of the later feats, you could actually like embody elements of your Eldamon that's within you, and you kind of like fuse forms with them. It's really awesome. A lot of this won't make sense until we look at a power, so I'm not going to get into it here. But there are feats like, you know, if you have a power that has an area of effect, you can twist it around your allies so you're not hitting them. You could take that feat, right? Distracting element, I think, is... what is it? If you hit or they fail a saving throw, you can make them dazzled. So you can just like additional riders to your powers, basically. Fun stuff. Okay. So I think now is probably a good time to look at some of the powers. And I'm going to look at what I want to look at, because we got a small crew tonight. So I'm going to go to the ones that I've been curious about. I do think light and dark are really cool. They're kind of opposites, but they are a little more complicated. So we might not look at those. Mind is interesting. Wood is complicated for sure. Wood is... it's a lot about like battlefield control and manipulation. Like you seed these squares on the battlefield. It's called sowing. And then you can use certain powers that'll give you abilities. And it's like if you reap what you've sown in that square, then it'll give you an additional boost. Or like this power will only take effect on enemies that are in squares that have been sown. It's really tactical and cool, but it is definitely a little bit of overhead there. Let's look at... what do I want to choose? I definitely want to talk about ice. I like the idea of talking about light and dark. And I also think we should talk about electricity. So let's do electricity for fun. So this is what a power set looks like in Eldamon. Obviously, you know, they've got these little symbols. The element of electricity represents the charging flow and overwhelming shocks of lightning and other electricity. Electric Eldamon and elemental avatars build up charge in order to launch extremely powerful attacks. So there is your mechanical function of this. You're going to be playing with a resource management subsystem of these powers, building up charge and then discharging to do additional effects depending on what your charge level is. So that's what we have to look forward to here. Associated damage type, electricity. Associated traits, electricity. Some of them don't map super cleanly to existing damage types, and that's why these are here. So they can help bridge that gap if it's an element that doesn't have an analog really in base Pathfinder. So let's take a look here. Active powers, electric surge. You send a surging current of electricity in front of you, shocking creatures in a line. You deal 1d4 electricity damage plus 1d4 electricity damage for each level you have to all creatures in a 20-foot line with a basic reflex save. So we're triggering a save. We're going to do level d4 plus 1 d4. And the other brilliant thing about this system is you think, oh, power 1 I'm just going to get rid of when I get up to higher levels, and I'm going to start taking power 5s. And the answer is actually no, they all auto-scale, which is brilliant. So the function of them, even the lower level ones, the simpler ones, the function of them is still retained by the damage. And I think, yeah, here it is. At 5th level, you can choose to increase the size of the line to a 30-foot line. And every 4 levels thereafter, you can increase the size of the line by an additional 10 feet to a maximum of 60. So I'm pretty confident it's all, I might be wrong, but like all of these powers automatically scale as you level up. So they retain their usefulness, and they continue to be interesting choices for you to make, which is just good design. Just really good design. Now, this is the basic effect. You're doing a line of electricity. That sounds funny. And then it says, choose one. You either become charged or you discharge to increase the area to a 40-foot line and the damage dice from d4s to d8s. So we need to know how we get charged. Here's one method. You cast Electric Surge, you can become charged. You can use that elsewhere. So we'll see. I think there's going to be a sidebar probably that tells it. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do the sidebar. You'll see the following terms in almost every electricity elemental power. Charged. Electricity Eldamon and electricity elemental avatars can gain the charged condition. The charged condition always has a value from 1 to 3. If a charged creature is already charged and would become charged, they instead increase the value of their charged condition by 1 to a maximum of charged 3. So in our first example, if we're not charged, we use it, we can go to charged 1, basically. A charged creature is shocked as long as it has charged. So we can apply the charged condition to targets. Any effect that would remove the shocked condition instead reduces the charged condition value by 1. So shocked is actually a companion condition to charged, because if you were to get an enemy to charged 3 and something would remove, how did they word it? If it would remove the shocked condition, instead they would go down to charged 2. So that's why that's written up the way it is. Most electricity powers offer options to discharge, reducing the charged condition by 1 in order to gain additional effects. So this is your resource game that you're playing. When do I want to go Nova, and when do I want to bide my time? The charge condition lasts until the end of an encounter. Any charge gained outside an encounter is lost during the next refresh. The reason for this is so that you don't do something silly, and I heard Mark Seifter say this on the stream, I think somewhere, or maybe it was in their Discord, that you don't have somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to attack this wall 3 times before we go into the fight and get to charge 3 before we start. It's like, come on. We got to make some concessions to gamism here. As a result, electricity Eldamon and elemental avatars always begin an encounter uncharged. There you have it. An electricity Eldamon or elemental avatar can't use a power that requires them to discharge if they aren't charged. We'll probably see some of those here. Now here's shocked. The shocked condition normally doesn't have a value. A shocked creature is electrically charged, making it easy for electricity to harm it. It's off guard against attacks that deal electricity damage, even if it's only additional electricity damage, such as a shock weapon. So you have an electricity Eldamon in your party, and your party members can be like, hey, let's get shock runes on everything. It's fun synergy. And they take -2 circumstance penalty on fortitude and reflex saving throws against electricity effects, making them more likely to keep hitting, which is cool. The shocked condition normally lasts for the duration listed, but it ends early if the creature takes any amount of electricity damage from a source other than persistent electricity damage, or if they spend an interact action to discharge the electricity harmlessly. Whoa, okay, that was hard to parse. The condition lasts for the duration, but it can end early if they take electricity damage from a source other than persistent. Huh. Okay, so they're basically grounding out. And there must be a mechanical reason why they don't want that that shocked condition to stick around. I think it's supposed to be like you kind of like tag an enemy with shocked, and then you basically unload on them. But if you want that again, you need to tag them with shocked again, I think, essentially. So there's our context there. And we're back to our other level 1 power. Static shock. You create an electric potential on the surface of your body and then touch a foe, releasing a static shock. So this is melee. You deal 2d6 electricity damage plus 1d6 for every level you have to a touched foe. Results depend on your melee power attack roll. You choose one again. You either become charged or you discharge to increase the damage to 2d12 plus 1d12 for every level you have. So let's see. At level 1, you're doing this is 3d6. The average of a d6 is 3.5, so you're doing 10.5 damage on average. If you discharge to do this, you are doing 3d12. The average of a d12 is 6.5, so 3 times that is 18, plus another 1.5 is 19.5. So not quite doubling your damage, but close. Unless I did some of that math wrong, which is possible. Okay, so then you have different effects here. Critical, you deal double, and they become shocked for 2 rounds. So that's cool, because now, let's see if we can remember. If they're shocked, they are off guard to electricity. They take a -2 to fortitude saves and a -2 to reflex saves against electricity. So you can start with static shock and then go next round into electric surge. They're more likely to fail the save and take additional damage. On a failure, you miss, but some of the electricity crosses the distance. There are a lot of failure effects in Pathfinder, but also in Eldamon as well, so that you get something out of a failure usually. So they take an amount of electricity damage equal to 2 plus your level. So that'll be 3 for us at level 1. 3 damage. Not the most, but sometimes, sometimes 1 more damage is all you need. And they become shocked until the end of your next turn. So even if you fail this attack, your next round, if that foe is still up, they're going to be shocked and you can hit them with the electric surge. So that's, like, you can see how these powers are going to interlock and play with each other and give you kind of a rotation that you're trying to use. And then gameplay, if it's good gameplay, should disrupt rotations as often as possible so that you're forced to make interesting choices. That's my opinion. Okay, we'll go to level 3 here in a minute, but let's go to the other level 1s. Sorry for the scrolling. Here we go. Reactive powers. So every element has 3 of these. There's one at level 1, one at level 5, and one at level 11. You're always going to start with this one. Retributive shock reaction. Trigger. An adjacent foe hits you with a melee attack. A foe hits you with a melee unarmed attack. Or a foe hits you with a melee attack with a metal weapon. Ah, I see. Okay, so if they're adjacent, of course. But if a foe hits you with a melee attack with a melee weapon, and let's say they have reach, and they're hitting you from 10 feet away, they're not adjacent, but you can still shock them if they're using a metal weapon. That's kind of cool. I don't know why this is here. A foe hits you with a melee unarmed attack. Okay, that's the same thing. That's basically a creature that might have, a creature or enemy that might have an unarmed attack that has reach. You can still shock them. Cool. I wonder why this had to be added at all then, because this seems to cover all the other cases. But whatever. I trusted Mark. Whenever an enemy dares to strike you, you take the opportunity to shock them with electricity, making them more vulnerable to your follow-up electric attacks. The triggering foe takes electricity damage equal to 1 plus half your level. And Pathfinder we round down, right? So that's 1. And must attempt a reflex save with the following effects. Before they roll, you can choose to discharge in order to more effectively push your charge off onto a foe and shock them. If you do, they use the result 1 degree of success worse than the one they rolled. That's awesome. That's super cool. So basically, they're going to roll a reflex save against you. You can discharge to make their result 1 step worse. And if they're already shocked, they're going to have a worse reflex save. So yeah, this is cool. On a crit success, they avoid it entirely. On a success, they take no damage, but they become shocked until the end of your next turn. So if you discharge, you can basically keep them shocked no matter what. This is the best outcome they could hope for, is that you will guarantee that they'll be shocked for the next turn. Failure, they take full damage and then become shocked for 1 minute. What damage are they taking? 1 plus half your level. So not a lot. And they're shocked for 1 minute. Dang. And you can just lay the beat down on them. Critical failure, foe takes double damage and becomes shocked for 1 minute. Good stuff. And your refresh power at level 1, you get refresh powers at 1, 7, and 13. So high voltage. As you refresh your electricity, you build a huge electric potential, shocking the first creature to attack you. Before the beginning of your next turn, the first time an adjacent creature hits you with a melee attack. A creature touches you, such as using when a touch range spell. Is that even a thing in Pathfinder anymore? We have touch range spells? I thought we got rid of that. That's something I missed from like 3.5, Pathfinder 1. I thought that was gone. Anyway, or a creature hits you with a melee unarmed attack or a melee attack with a metal weapon. They take 1d6 electricity plus 1d6 electricity for every level you have with a basic reflex save. So basically for a turn, you're just buzzing with electricity. And if they want to come at you, they're going to take damage for it. It's kind of cool. This does run into the problem, though, of like the champion problem. You know the champion has the highest AC. So as the GM, do you actually have your enemies attack the champion? Or do you have them go around the champion and attack something with lower AC? And it's like, at what point do you have to just kind of like play to the creature's mentality? I think if they're mindless, they're not going to make that strategic decision, so I guess I'll attack the champion. But if they're not mindless, they will. This is a similar deal. So a player's going to use high voltage, and then as the GM, you're going to be like, well, I just want to attack you then. And that's kind of shitty. So Those are conversations that you need to have at your tables when that stuff comes up. As usual for such effects, it occurs only when a creature touches or hits you, not when you touch or hit the creature, because, you're trying not to game the whole thing. After the electricity discharges once, even if the creature critically succeeds at his reflex save and takes no damage, no further creatures take electricity damage. You refresh your powers. So it's a one and done, basically. So it's not abusable. So that's your level 1 starting power set. You've got your electricity surge, static shock, high voltage, and retributive shock, I think it was called. That's what you're going to start with. You'll play with that at level 1 and level 2. And then at level 3, I believe you get to choose one. Don't quote me on this. Just read the book. But you get to choose one of the level 3 powers to add to your ones that you can prepare. You still, I think, only get to prepare 2 active at this point. And there's a progression. So if you go to the class page and look at the progression, there's a point at which you can now prepare 5 total powers instead of 4. And then later on 6 and so on and so forth. It does open up a bit at later levels. But what could we look forward to at level 3? Electric shot. You shoot a jolting shot of electricity at a foe. Make a ranged power attack roll against a foe within 40 feet. Dealing 2d4 plus 1d4. And you already know if we discharge is going to go to d8s. Yep, there it is. 2d4 plus 1d4 for every level. So at this level, it's doing 5d4 damage. Average on a d4 is 2.5. So we're talking 12.5. Choose one. You either become charged or you discharge to increase the damage to 2d8 plus 1d8 for every level and increase the range to 80 feet. So you basically can just like snipe somebody from 80 feet away. Pretty good. 80 feet with 5d8, 4.5 by 5 is 20, 22.5. Not bad. Level 3. At 7th level, and every 4 levels thereafter, your electric shot's range increases by 20, 40 if you discharge, to a maximum of 120, 240 if you discharge at 19th level. Crit success, double damage, normal damage. Failure, you miss, but they take damage equal to your level. So you're still doing some. If the target is shocked, the shot swerves toward the target and jolts them slightly, dealing half damage instead. Huh? Oh. That's quite good. I was thinking half damage as in half the damage of your level, which would be worse. But no, if they're shocked, they take half of the damage that you roll. So that's awesome. Critical failures, you miss completely, of course. Makes sense. It does not feel good to miss with power attacks, but I tell you, at least sometimes maybe choose powers that use attack rolls so you can use hero points. It's not fun to miss on saves and not be able to do anything. Polarize. You electrically polarize a creature, causing it to become charged as electricity surges through them, jolting them over and over. You deal 1d4 persistent electricity damage per 2 levels you have, rounded up, to a target within 30 feet. So we're at level 3. We're going to be dealing 4d4? Did I do that right? No, 1d4 per 2 levels. So we have... My brain does not want to do this right now. It's going to be 2d4. That's the point. 2d4 persistent with a basic fortitude save. On a failure, they become shocked for 2 rounds in addition to that. Oh, good. That is a good notification to get. This persistent electricity damage from polarized doesn't discharge their shocked condition as normal. Right. So it is restated again here to make it explicitly clear that persistent electricity damage does not remove their shocked condition, because that would be really feel bad. Choose one. You either become charged or you discharge to increase the persistent electricity damage to 1d4 per level, so you're doubling it. I kind of forgot already, so we're going to find it again on this next page. Discharge. Does discharge drop it by 1, or do you have to use all that you have? Why am I not seeing it? Well, I'm sure it'll become clear in a minute. Okay, 1 second here. All right. So let's just go on and we'll just see what other fun things here are in front of us. We've got an emanation. So you get a lot of customization on what types of effects you're going to have. If you want to do a line, then stick with your electric surge. If you want to do emanations because of whatever build you have going on, pick up electric field. Similarly, you're going to discharge for more effect, etc., etc. Anvil Crawler Lightning. That sounds cool. Lightning branches out in a cone. There you go. Cone with spidery fingers. So now you can choose between cones. And a lot of these target different saves as well. So you can build towards, I want to be sure I can target reflex and fortitude intermittently so that I can tactically go for what I want to go for. That's a smart play. Supercharge. You either gain or expel a huge amount of electric charge at once. This should be fun. Choose one. You either become charged 3 times. Oh, that's cool. Or you discharge at least once and up to 3 times. If you choose to become charged, this power has no other effects. So if you're in a position, let's say you're in a combat where there's waves of enemies coming at you and you've cleared the first wave and you have a little bit of a breather, you can just go supercharge. I'm up to charge 3 now. So now I'm just going to start like laying it out. If you choose to discharge once, foes within 30 feet take damage and they become shocked. If you choose to discharge twice, it extends to 60 feet and the damage goes up. Holy crap. If you choose to discharge 3 times, foes within 90 feet take an amount of electricity damage equal to your level plus 1d12, plus an additional 1d12 for each level you have. So you're at level 7, and you're rolling 8d12 plus 7 to everything in 90 feet. Only foes, not allies. And they get shocked for 3 rounds on a failed save. Yeah, so I mean, if you have the time, you supercharge, charge up to 3, or maybe get there some other way. Do a refresh. Now you're at charge 3. Supercharge again, and you just discharge and wipe out the whole field. It just feels like in X-Men 97 when Storm comes down and it's just lightning everywhere. Very cool and evocative. That's a fun one. It clearly would take some setup, and I think this might be feel bad if you have combats that go too fast or if you don't have a chance to hit a lot of things. But so this is lessened. If you're an elemental avatar, you might not take this because you're locked into one power set, and maybe you need to have more flexibility. You don't want to do setups. If you have an Eldamon trainer, then that means you send out the electric Eldamon when you know that the fight is going in such a way that this could be good, because you can build each of your 3 Eldamon for different niches, different elements, different purposes, everything. A lot of tactical depth to this. Forked lightning, you electrocute a foe and the lightning forks off to strike nearby charged creatures. So this is kind of a chain lightning deal. You become charged or you discharge, double the damage, etc. We get that. 9th level Jolting Embrace. You surround yourself with electricity in order to shock all those who dare attack you until you refresh adjacent creatures that hit you. And the unarmed attack and probably the metal weapons as well. No, it doesn't say metal weapons this time. But basically everything that hits you is gonna take damage and become shocked. And you can discharge to make that damage more. So seems like it'd be a really fun power set to play with because you're constantly making these choices as you're casting these things. It's not just I cast Magic Missile, so I roll this many dice. I cast Fireball, so I roll this many dice, which is fun in its own way. But this is like every time you're casting one of these, you're making a choice. And I think that makes it very fun. Ball Lightning. You create balls of lightning which last for a few seconds. Rather than a mere moment, then fling them at nearby foes. Choose up to 4 different foes, each within 30 feet of you. You fling balls of lightning at each of them. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Like that. Detonate charge. Choose a shocked foe within 60 feet. And you're basically discharging them. Oh, that's cool. So you're like remote detonating the charge that you've stacked on them. That's so cool. Then the electricity releases from that target with an emanation of at least 5 feet and up to 30. Oh my god. That's awesome. That's so cool. And then again, you choose if you're going to become charged or if you discharge. If you discharge, you detonate your own charge rather than the charge on another creature. And you basically like explode your own electricity outwards as an emanation. That's cool. And it has the niceties of not having you damage yourself. I appreciate that. Okay. Shocking curtain. You trace a curtain of electricity across the battlefield, electrocuting those who cross it. And I will say most of the power sets have a wall effect. And I think that's just so that the class has access to this tool if you want it, regardless of elements. They all kind of have like a wall element of sorts. So this is a 5-foot thick curtain of electricity, up to 10 feet high, 40 feet long. And then if they cross it, they take damage, as you would expect. So that's good. Now, we all know how campaigns work. It's going to take you a while to get to level 11 anyway. So we're going to look at one more, whatever we think is the coolest sounding level power from here up. And then we'll also pick up the refresh and reactions at 11 and below. And then we'll talk about the additional effects here. So, coruscating chain, spasmodic shock, ride the lightning, that's going to be a contender. Storm spiral, ooh, supercell, Mjolnir. There are ultimate powers as well, and I forget the specific rules about these, but I think it's that you're limited how often you can use them or something like that. Like you can only use them once per fight. I know, Shu. I know. We're in the tactical side of it, though. It's very cool. I know you already know. You barfed glitter and melted a dude. What? Excuse me? So we'll look at Ride the Lightning because it sounds badass. You transform into lightning and surge forward in a straight line. The lightning you become shoots out in a line up to 120 feet. Creatures in the area take 1d12 for every 2 levels you have, rounded up, with a basic reflex save. So this is going to be 8d12, if I'm doing this right. Your movement as lightning still triggers reactions, but very few effects can actually affect you when you're lightning. Unless they counteract, ride the lightning, or directly divert a lightning bolt. At the end of the line, you transform back into your original form, having moved the intervening distance. Choose one. You become charged, or you discharge to increase the damage to... It's doubling it, basically. 1d12 plus 1d12 for every level. So that's going to be 16d12, and you can go 240 feet as a bolt of lightning. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. There's a power like this that they did in their dragon books, too. I think it might have been the Solar Dragon has one where it's like you become a beam of like white hot light. You similarly like race across the battlefield. They make fun stuff. That's all I'm saying. And then let's pick Mjolnir for the ultimate. You hurl a hammer of lightning into the air where it floats up to 120 feet away laterally and up to 60 feet above the ground at the end of each of your turns. The hammer shoots lightning at all your foes below it vertically and within 60 feet laterally, dealing 1d12 electricity damage for every 2 levels you have, with basic reflex save. So you're basically putting like a lightning turret up in the sky. It's just going to pop off for the rest of the battle. Not for the rest of the battle, until you refresh. So you want to, after you refresh, you want this to be the first thing you throw out. Or throw it out in the beginning of the turn, because it's a 3-action move. This could be really fun, though. Basically, you're just summoning a persistent lightning storm above everybody. It's cool, cool, cool. All right, now your reactives on electricity. Here's a trigger at level 5. If a creature within 30 feet takes electricity damage, and they will be, and there's a shocked foe within 30 feet of the damaged creature who didn't take electricity damage from the same effect. Okay. You cause electricity to arc to a shocked foe. Triggering shocked foe takes half the electricity damage the other creature took. Wow. With a basic reflex save against your power DC. That'd be funny. You're like, oh, I can hit all of these enemies in the line except for this one guy, but he's shocked. I'll turn myself into a lightning bolt, blast through all these guys, and then I'll arc the lightning off of one to the one I couldn't hit, and they'll take half of the damage too. Just fun. That's just fun. Protective shock. If an adjacent foe hits you with a melee attack. Okay, it's the same trigger. The same triggers for this one. You attempt to briefly zap an attacker, attempting to stun them just long enough to cancel the attack. The triggering foe must attempt a fortitude save. On a failure, the attack is disrupted. That's nice. Before they roll the fort save, you can choose to discharge. If you do and they fail to save, they also lose one of their remaining actions for the turn. Dang. That's pretty good. And if they're shocked, right? Let me read this again. If they are already shocked, they take a -2 to fort saves against this. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. See what else we can do with refresh. So we'll do devour charge, and then we'll talk about these other abilities that all of these elements have. Devour charge. You draw in charge from nearby foes as you rearrange the elemental electricity in the area and refresh your powers. For each foe with the shocked condition within 30 feet, you can choose to devour their charge, causing them to take damage equal to your level and become off guard for 1 round. To everyone, not just to you. Removing their shocked condition. If you devoured the charge from at least 1 foe, you become charged. You refresh your powers. That seems cool. That seems really fun. I don't know how much shocked you're going to be able to throw out to really harvest that for maximum efficiency. But then again, you could have additional Eldamon trainers. You could have like a whole electrical squad out there just really hammering in on this. That sounds kind of wild and fun, actually. So that's cool. Let's talk about this, though. So these other abilities, every element has all of these. They have an elemental locomotion, a manipulation, a resistance, a sculptor, a senses, a shield, a surge, a locomotion, an enhanced locomotion. And the way that you get these by and large is through feats from the elemental avatar, typically. So these are more for the avatar class, less for the Eldamon themselves, because the Eldamon themselves each have their own special powers on top of everything that we already talked about. So some of these you start with, so you will have Elemental Shield as an avatar. You can pick up Elemental Shield as a trainer, but you will have this. And this is the little rider effects I was talking about. If a foe misses their melee attack only because of the circumstance bonus to AC, which basically means the math was tight, the shield zaps the foe and they become shocked until the end of your next turn. So it's just a free shock when, you get that 5%, the number comes up just right when you've used an elemental shield. Again, not going to be something super common, but it's just a fun little rider. I believe senses you have to take a feat for. And so for us, for electricity, you gain imprecise volt sense, which just sounds cool, out to 30 feet, which allows you to sense electric potential and currents. Now, this would be fun if you were doing like a Numeria campaign, right? You're going into these Starfall spaceships that crashed. You're like, I have volt sense. Are there any robots active nearby? Oh my God. This is so cool. Not only does it allow you to notice electric power moving around you, it can potentially allow you to notice most living creatures as they rely on electric currents to power their nervous systems. This is some superhero shit. This is so fun. However, the electric current from a living creature is quite small. Okay, and easily hidden. Yeah, fine. Stronger electricity is impossible to hide from you. You do not start with locomotion. You have to take a feat for that. You do start with elemental manipulation as an avatar, though. So this is going to be like a small little kind of whenever you want outside of combat. Typically, you can do this in combat, but it takes 2 actions, and it's usually not going to be a strong enough effect to warrant 2 actions. But maybe. You never know. When you use elemental manipulation as an electric elemental avatar, you can control electricity and electric current, diverting electric currents or electric charge. You can also give an adjacent creature the shocked condition for 2 rounds. That's directly battle relevant, actually. Interesting. At your GM's discretion, you can make other small adjustments to electricity. I would say this would be a fun way to start a combat where you're like, we haven't triggered initiative yet. I want to pull up alongside them and I want to like electrically charge them. And then they'll be like, what the hell? And then initiative starts, but they start off at shocked for 2 rounds. That'd be fun. Elemental resistance you have to take as a feat to unlock this, but you're going to get protection against electric surges. You're not going to probably take this that often, unless you're like, oh, we're playing the electricity campaign. Locomotion is always fun. You can jolt off like a bolt of lightning almost instantly as a single action, which has the move trait starting from a solid surface. This allows you to move in a straight line in any direction, even vertically, at a distance out to half your land speed without triggering reactions based on movement. That's really good. Because basically instead of stepping, you can go half your speed and just like, zip, I'm a lightning bolt, can't touch me. If your destination contains an object or creature... of significant size that substantially conducts electricity. such as copper, silver, or gold, you can move up to your land speed instead of half your land speed. That's cool. If you end the movement somewhere that can't support your weight, such as in midair, you fall. Now, the metal element has not been published yet, but that would be fun if like the metal element can put metal deposits out in the field and then you can just like zip between them. It's just, oh man, it's cool. It's so cool. This is 1 out of 13 elements in this book. It's fun. Elemental Sculptor is an upgrade to manipulation that you can get through a feat. So now, if you get this, you can move and control electricity to a greater extent, you can channel significant electrical currents, direct nearby environmental electricity to another target of your choice. If a lightning bolt from a thunderstorm was about to hit a tree, you could divert it into a nearby foe instead. So, you know, how often is that going to come up? I mean, hopefully, if you're playing an electric elemental avatar, maybe the GM will throw you a thunderstorm once in a while. So that's fun. The Surge is that little extra rider effect. If you can't manage to pull off a power, it'll give you a little bonus the next time you can, the next turn. What does this one do? They become shocked until the end of your next turn. So then you don't have to worry about choosing that option on your power. And then Enhanced Locomotion. So this is now you've taken 2 feats into your locomotion. You can chain the lightning jolts from your elemental locomotion, zigzagging through conductive materials like chain lightning. As long as you continue using lightning jolts to move at least once per turn, you don't fall until the end of your next turn, even if you end your movement in midair. Unlike a fly speed, you can move straight up without continuing the movement as difficult terrain. Yeah, that was implied from the earlier movement as well. And you continue ignoring reactions based on movement with your lightning jolts, but you can still only move in a series of straight lines. That's just cool. Again, you have to have the right environment to actually make that useful. But it definitely gives me like that Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's like in the power plant and he's just like appearing. Well, even Electro in No Way Home? Spider-Man No Way Home? Where he's just like zipping across. It's really cool. Really cool visual. So every element has this entire suite of powers, and they're all themed to the element. And you can see here, like, it talks about, you know, targeting metal things or conductive things or sensing the nervous systems of creatures. So each power has cool stuff like this. It's really a lot of fun. This is just a stream where I say, this is really a lot of fun, guys. I think playing an electricity elemental avatar would be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Let's kind of go all the way with it and look at... So here's all the rules for how Eldamon, the creatures themselves, work. This is how their armor classes are categorized, what languages they know, their proficiencies. All really important stuff to know if you're using Eldamon themselves. How they know powers, their hit points, reading their entries, which we're going to do next. Okay, and then we're into the entries. So what I wanted to do is go to the electric guys. And Tawertle is the first one. So, these are cute little guys, and we'll read this quick. Tawertles are the thrill seekers of the Eldamon world. When winds roar and lightning crashes, they rush to greet the elements. They surf the tallest waves, sway in treetop canopies during storms, and soar through the air when blasted by a surge of electricity. Tawertles are happy to accompany trainers on adventures, but only if they promise more excitement than the ones they're already on. That matters, because you actually have to befriend them with the things they're interested in. So that guides your roleplay as far as how you interact with these guys. Cool. So, this line has these specific stats as its base. They have a special language, Volten, that you can learn to speak. A certain number of base hit points. Weaknesses and resistances that are unique to them. And they also have built-in melee attacks. Most Eldamon have these. Some of them have built-in ranged attacks. And then the evolution condition. So even if you get to level 11 and you want to get to the final... I'll show you guys the final form. Here's Tawertle, here's Chelawat, and Thortus. It's got to be Thortus. Even if you get to level 11 and you could have an evolved Eldamon, you are supposed to satisfy this roleplay condition, which is help them experience pure thrill from their risks. And these are the special abilities of this line. So to start off, resistant shell, you have an outer shell of energy that's electrically resistant, allowing you to safely store charge. When you are charged from your own elemental powers, you don't become shocked, and you don't reduce your charge condition from effects that would remove the shocked condition. I actually missed this, so I'm glad I read this now. I didn't realize that when you get charged, you also get shocked. So you are also at a negative, you're off guard to electricity, and you have negative to fortitude and reflex saves against electricity. So you get that. Your form ability, which is if you are going into battle form with the Eldamon, the elemental avatar will not get this, nor will they get this evolution ability. They only get the first one. So these are unique to the Eldamon trainer. Gives you a single action thing ability you can do. You can retreat into your shell. If you do, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to AC and are immobilized. These effects last until the end of your next turn, though you can end the effect early with a single action. Right, so your Eldamon are not out there toting shields around. So having this as an option is actually, it's nice to have. If you have a third action that you want to use, you can just whoop, go into the shell. I think that's cute. And their evolution ability, Shell Fortification. Your shell fortifies you from dangerous blows. You gain resistance equal to half your level to precision damage. And when a creature critically hits you, you can attempt a DC 17 flat check. On a success, the critical hit becomes a normal hit instead. That is a 420, 20% chance to negate any crit. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I should mention this too. So if you're playing the Eldamon trainer and you have the Eldamon progressing as they level up, you can choose all of their powers for them like you would an elemental avatar. But that's a lot to do for 3 at minimum Eldamon on your team, not to mention however many more you might meet. And there can be a lot of bookkeeping to this. So what they did is they actually set up a base standard power progression for each line of Eldamon. So this progression is going to be different than the next one we look at. Everybody's first level is the same because you only have those choices. And then this is what it will look like at 5th level. So this includes level 1 powers and level 3 powers. Why doesn't it have 3rd level here? Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Or maybe there's a typo in this particular thing. 4, 5, 6. I don't know. I might be misunderstanding something. But at 7th, so you can just use this as your progression, so you don't have to have the analysis paralysis. And then it also makes each line of Eldamon feel unique because they know particular movesets. And if you were to do like an Eldamon Arena or an Eldamon Battle League, you could actually get into the meta and be like, this is the better electric Eldamon of the two. And like, do that whole thing. So, pretty good. Pretty cool. This is what happens to the stats as you reach certain milestones. Advanced Training is a level 5 milestone where, the stats go up and a bunch of other things change. Eldamon Evolution is an 11th level progression. Stats go up again, and so on and so forth. So really everything that you need mechanically for your Eldamon is here. You do need to know how to calculate their hit points and so on and so forth, but that's on those pages earlier we looked at. So, let's read this for fun. Need to recharge. An excited Tawurtle might spark with electricity, but the opposite is also true. A Tawurtle who is exhausted or sad for a prolonged period of time might become so drained that they lose all their electrical powers. They can recover their spark on their own if they quickly rest and regain their joy for life, but if they remain depleted for a long period of time, they could need external help to recharge. Such an intervention usually involves a circle of other Tawurtles infusing them with electricity during a ritual dance, but a solitary Tawurtle can wait for a lightning strike atop a tall location during a thunderstorm. This is really, 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 really cool. If you have a campaign that is focused on and built around Eldamon, this is like your anime episode, right? This is like a mix of, Charmander's tail is going out and Bulbasaur going to the whatever ritual when they're all trying to evolve and then he doesn't want to, and whatever. It's got like these elements of like, this is like an experience, and it's just in a sidebar. This is a full session's worth of content that you can role play through. And I think that's really neat. I just think they're neat. And then there's little blurbs for every single different stage of these guys too. So, how big is Thordis? Is 1,500 pounds. 9 feet 6 inches. That's a big turtle. It's a big tortoise. Moving on then, let's look at, we've got Iognu, Electric Wildebeest. Look at this guy. He evolves into Wildebuzz and then into Shockhono. And he's got skulls on his knees. Like, what's going on there? That's wild. Super wild. But here your power progression is going to be different than the Twirtles that we just looked at. As I was explaining earlier. This ability, elemental ability, Rampaging. Your electric charges rampage through your foes, allowing them to occasionally cling even after they suffer electricity damage. When a foe shocked from your elemental powers takes electricity damage from your elemental powers, the foe must attempt a DC 5 flat check. On a success, they lose it as normal, whereas on a failure, they retain the charge and remain shocked. However, it doesn't extend the duration. That's still really quite good, I think, because it might make the difference between you getting to attack them when they're shocked once versus twice. It's a 20% chance that the shocked condition gets retained, basically. But that's neat, and it's just a neat little rider ability that can stay there. Form ability, again, now we're back to Eldamon only, not elemental avatar. Your fur gathers up electricity when you charge and rampage around. If you spend at least 3 of your actions on your turn to stride and don't use a power on that turn, you become charged at the end of the turn. That's kind of silly, but fun. Evolution ability, Lightning Rod Tail. When an electricity effect targets a creature within 30 feet of you, or includes a line within 30 feet of you, if it could have targeted you or aimed the line to hit you, you can choose to attempt a counteract check using your power DC minus 10 as your counteract modifier. Oh my god. If you succeed, instead of ending the effect, you force it to target you or to aim to include you. Okay, so you can draw an electric attack to you if it's targeting somebody else. If it could have targeted you or aimed the line to hit you at all, you can draw that to yourself instead. That's neat. It's a little complicated to pull that off, but it's going to be cool the one time you do it for sure. So, we'll just briefly look at the other electrical guys, and that's kind of the whole electrical overview. Porcute, the electric porcupine, Eldamon. We're almost at 2 hours as well, so we might even just wrap up with electric, because it's worth digging into these deeply. We didn't even read every power. This little guy evolves into Elecupine and then Erethizap. I have no idea how much research Mark had to do to come up with all these names. And then he had to wrap them too. If you don't know, the stretch goal for the original Kickstarter, one of the stretch goals was for Mark to do the Elder Rap, which was a parody of the Poker Rap, but with all the Eldamon names. So that's out there in the world. Yeah, these guys are pretty intense. I don't know why he's got... Yeah, anyway, intense. Elemental creatures. When a foe fumbles an attack, they strike a needle of electricity arcing across your body, shocking them. Whenever a foe critically fails an attack roll against you with a melee unarmed attack, etc., they take damage. Damage increases to 4 if you're expert. Okay, so it's scaling damage when they miss. That's pretty cool. And they become shocked for a round. Not bad. Defensive Quills, a creature that hits you with a melee unarmed strike or non-reach melee strike, takes piercing damage equal to half your level. I would think that would stack. Yeah, of course it does. This is if they hit, they take piercing damage. If they miss, they take electrical damage. You're basically like, leave me alone, bro. Evolution ability, Protective Armor. You wear electrified heavy armor. Your item bonus to AC from armor increases to +6. Your maximum dexterity decreases to +0, and your speed decreases to 20 feet. Huh. I did not expect that. So this is literal, like, armor that this guy's put on. Interesting. Cool. Oh, and when he's evolved, he gets reach with his quill attack. That's neat. I don't know how this scales with runes and all that stuff for Eldamon. I don't know if you can pass striking runes to them through hand wraps of mighty blows, but that might be a thing you can do. I would think that would be something that they would have thought of. We've got an electric centipede. Look at that guy. He's so happy. Is he rare? Yeah, he's rare. And he evolves into Capacipod and then Dielectripede. Look at this dude. He's 12 feet long. 12 feet long. Crazy. And then you're into fire. So that is that's a pretty thorough look at the electricity element. And you can see, okay, so briefly I'll just say, how do I want to do this? Of the ones that I know, like air has a lot of mobility related stuff. Darkness has this ability called like shrouding, where you increase the darkness value of a target relative to everything else, which means that it can't see out of its own darkness, and it's also harder for your allies to see. So sometimes you want to do that and sometimes you don't want to do that, and you're playing this game of like upping and downing the shrouded value. And I think there's even elements or powers that determine, you do this cold damage through this darkness, and it's affected by what shrouded level they're at. I might be wrong on that, but there's definitely some interplay with it. And then light is kind of the opposite, where you can actually make things more visible. If they would be in darkness, you can basically counteract that, as you would imagine, with light. And like sunlight ray, you emit a ray of sunlight and send it hurtling at your foe. Range power attack roll, fire damage equal to 2d4 plus 1d4 for every level, etc., etc. So all the scaling and everything applies to all these elements. So you're doing fire damage with your light element. Fire is all about persistent fire damage and applying it, and then doing extra effects if they're suffering persistent fire damage. You can do additional bonus things. So that's the kind of mini game you're playing with fire. Ice has a frozen status they can put on to enemies, and for every level of frozen that they have, it drops their speed by 5 feet. So you can kind of lock down enemies with these frozen conditions. And I think there's even one kind of similar to the discharge from the electricity, where you basically like shatter all of the ice around them. Cold snap, I think is what. Yeah, I think it's this one. You snap your fingers and shatter the ice that was freezing a target, dealing them massive damage. Choose a foe with the frozen condition from your ice powers within 60 feet. They take 1d6 cold for every level you have. Plus, additional damage equal 2d6 times the value of their frozen condition, to a maximum of 20d6 additional damage if the creature is frozen 10 or more. That's just cool. Life, like I said, is a kind of this like proactive, like strategic healing to it. Mind, I'm not too familiar with as far as mechanically what its deal is. So that's going to remain a mystery to me. Water's neat. Water, you actually cycle through a state of high tide and low tide, it's called. And so it has a lot of push and pull mechanics. And the nice thing about push and pull is you can push and pull enemies into hazardous terrain or off cliffs or things like that. You cannot do that with reposition, because reposition is considered forced movement, and forced movement rules state that you can't forced movement something into harm, but you can push or pull or shove. Basically things that would just like go in a straight line work, but you can't like move things side to side into danger. So water can do that. Depending on if they're in high tide or low tide, they're either pushing things away from them or pulling towards them. So that's pretty cool. We talked about wood and what it does. Death actually is really interesting because it interacts with like the death and dying rules of Pathfinder 2 in a way that like, well, most enemies don't use death and dying rules, but sometimes they do. And things that have regeneration definitely do. And that's really annoying. If you're trying to turn off regeneration, but also get them to dying 4 because they're constantly regenerating out of dying 3, 2, 1 and standing back up. But there are abilities in death that bypass that, or like there are powers, or I don't even remember what exactly they are. I think maybe one of the reaction powers. It's like if there is a creature near you that has a dying value, you can use a reaction to just increase their dying value by 1. It's pretty interesting. So Earth is a lot about damage and sort of defense, shielding, rock shields and all that good stuff. So It's a cool book, guys. It's a really, really, really cool book. In my thumbnail, I made my clickbait thumbnail. I said Eldamon is the only Pathfinder books you need. And what I mean by that is I think seriously, if you're looking at the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster and you get Player Core 1, Player Core 2, that's your base classes and all the mechanics you need to run them. GM Core, so that you know how to run the game. Monster Core, and then Monster Core 2, why not have bigger bestiary? But if you just got the core line of the Pathfinder products and Eldamon, I think you would have content for a decade. I really do. And of course, there's all sorts of other fun things coming out of Paizo. So keep getting stuff if you want to get stuff. But I really think, and I felt from the moment that this book came out, that this was a slam dunk in like every imaginable possible way. And I don't think when they launched it, because they had it bundled with a number of other Kickstarters or products in that first Kickstarter, they bundled it with, I think their first, what's it even called? The contest they used to run, or they still run, I'm not sure. The monster designing one, the bestiary. Battlezoo Bestiary, that's what it's called. They bundled it with that, and I think maybe even something else. And they had all these products coming out all at once. And I don't think they got as much attention to Eldamon as they wanted. But in subsequent years after the Kickstarter was done and fulfilled, I think they started to get more and more traction with it. Due to some creators really celebrating it and people that had it having a really good time with it and explaining to people like, this is a whole different magic system that feels really good in play. It gives you a lot of different levers to play with. There's so much replayability to this because you could play through and not even touch several of these elements. And then you're like, well, I want to see the other elements. I want to play another Eldamon trainer or another elemental avatar. And the mechanical richness and depth and the balance that was put into this. I mean, Mark Seifter is a wizard, and everybody knows it. For the work that he put into 2nd Edition, in particular, and making sure that that game is as balanced as it is, which I appreciate so much because, like I keep saying, my favorite thing about Pathfinder 2 is that it just works. It is easy to build encounters for. You say, this is the math, put this much experience out on the table, and it's gonna turn out pretty much the way you expect. Which means that it's not... I always say this. It allows the players the freedom to make choices born out of self-expression and the experience they want to have and not feel like they have to take the meta choice every single time. The design that is so balanced allows you to go horizontally with your builds and your experience, and I think I place a lot of value on that. And I actually have... This is one of the best books out of Pathfinder 1st Edition, Pathfinder Unchained, which... This was Mark Seifter's, I believe this was the first book he worked on when he came over to Paizo. It was one of the first. And a lot of the alternate rules that were developed in Pathfinder Unchained for Pathfinder 1st Edition were kind of a proto Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's a lot of stuff in here that was similar and carried over. Like they trimmed down the skill list down from, I don't know what it was, 23 skills down to 14. And if you look at it, you're like, oh, that's the PF2 skill list. So this is one of my favorite books, even though I don't play PF1 and hardly ever played it in the first place. But yeah, shout out to Mark Seifter. Shout out to Stephen Glicker for grabbing him up when he had the chance and for making these awesome products. I appreciate it a lot. I think they're fun. I'm excited to start getting content from Legends. Oh, I forgot. I was going to go back and tell you guys this too. Where is it in this book? There's a section where it actually gives you rules for how to apply limited elemental powers to other monsters from other bestiaries. So you can take these cool powers, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out because the powers are built on a rotation, and so as a one-off on their own, they're not really doing much for you. But I actually used that once. I had like this phase spider that I also gave a firepower, and it was pretty fun. But also there's rules about like imbuing weapons with Eldamon. And I don't remember if there's like mechanical bonuses to it or if it's more of a flavor thing. I'm going to try and find it quick because I know I'm not really holding too many people up here. Quick start guide, ecology, phase, melding effects. Here we go. I think this is it. Okay, Let's go back over to the 2-up. Like so. Melding effects. When an Eldamon melds into a creature, object, or environment, there often isn't any effect, especially not at first. However, depending on their compatibility and how long the Eldamon remains melded, they can produce a synergistic effect, even to the extent of transforming an extremely compatible creature into an elemental avatar. That's literally where your player character elemental avatars can come from. While none of these effects is mandatory, and they usually wouldn't be possible for a group that determined the presence of Eldamon on the fly, they can add a lot of flavor to campaigns where the GM rolls for Eldamon in advance during session prep. Who does prep? Not me. Or from the flip side, they provide a valuable means to adjust creatures, treasures, or environments to add elemental effects. While few creatures are compatible enough with an Eldamon to become elemental avatars, they still might exhibit the ability to use a single limited elemental power. Either replace one of the creature's special abilities with a single elemental power of the appropriate element of the creature's level or lower, usable with a frequency of once per minute, which means it's going to be used once, unfortunately. Or use the following simple adjustment for a creature with a larger connection. The adjustment also serves as a great way to give creature elemental features. So this is what they say. And I think this, you increase the creature's level by 1. So this is kind of like an alternative to the elite template that's baked into the core Pathfinder 2 rules. Increase these things by 1, increase the damage of the strikes, etc., etc. Add 1 elemental power of the appropriate element, etc., etc. So it's cool. It gives you guidance for that. And then it says items. Items with high compatibility with a melded Eldamon can eventually develop magical properties related to the Eldamon's element, which might or might not remain after the Eldamon leaves. While a minor connection might lead to an item gaining the Eldamon's resistances and weaknesses, or some unusual magic item quirks related to the Eldamon or its personality, more major effects are possible. For instance, an item might become a relic. Did they get rid of relic in Remaster? I actually don't know that. I know that relics were a thing in the Game Mastery Guide for pre-master Pathfinder 2. So I don't know that. Either way, with an aspect corresponding to the Eldamon's element, or if it's a weapon, the item might become imbued with an imbued property corresponding to the Eldamon's element. And then it references a couple other Battlezoo products you can use inspiration from. In either case, the Eldamon's level determines the maximum possible level for the relic's gifts or the imbued property. Though in many cases, an Eldamon doesn't provide a benefit corresponding to its full level unless it's resided within the item for a long time. But here's the thing. Here's what it doesn't say. You could have an Eldamon go into a weapon, and you as the GM or as the players or whatever, for whatever reason, you can say, hey, this weapon is giving you access to these Eldamon powers. And they would make for way more fun magic items than a lot of magic items that are out there. Like a sword that can just cast, the Ride the Lightning, level 15 elemental power. How cool is that? That's so cool. So, again, the value of this book far outreaches what it looks like on the tin. And people who look at this book and they're like, I don't like the cutesy creatures. Okay, fine. I don't care. You don't need to like them. The versatility in the power set alone and all of the modular, customizable ways that you can apply those to a campaign, to your creatures, to items, to magic items, to this and that, everything else. Super high value product. Super high value. So there's my pitch for Eldamon. If you play Pathfinder 2, you should have Eldamon. If you play 5e, probably also should have Eldamon. I don't know anything about 5e. Anyway, I like the book. I do like the book. I don't even know if you're still here, technically. I can't see who's in chat, so I could have been talking to anybody. In fact, you don't know that I'm calling you out. But you already know. You've seen this in action. You know how good the mechanics of this are, right? You guys used it in Northern Reaches Season 3, right? I know it was a lot to administer, and it was probably a pain, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But, that's your fault for having live play mega game campaigns. That's on you. That is on you, my guy. Oh, man. What else is in the book that I maybe even missed? I don't think I missed anything. Really, we could just sit here and scroll through and look at all the little critters. They're all pretty cool. again, as I mentioned, there is official lore, official Battlezoo, what do they call it? World of Battlezoo line. Jewel of the Indigo Isles is in this world and everything along with it. With the Eld, like the elemental like entities, deities that are kind of in the world. And I honestly didn't look that much into that, to be honest with you. Oh, did you guys unlock it? Did they have to unlock? That's rough. So you didn't even get a full season to like get it under your belt. Didn't you guys do the same thing with Starfinder 2 stuff? Like they unlocked access to Starfinder 2 abilities towards the end or something? Northern Reaches is crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, New Dawn is crazy, but in an entirely different way. Entirely different. So, yeah, that's Eldamon. Let me check and see, because I know I pulled up the Kickstarter. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming in Legends and what may be coming in a potential third product. No to Starfinder. So, you know, they're doing all the usual things. Back in the first 72 hours, get some free dice. Everybody likes dice. They look pretty to me. In fact, let's pull this up. Look at these dice. Do you notice anything about these dice? Hold on. Let me open this in a new tab. See if I can zoom in on it better. You notice anything about these dice and their colors? You notice anything about that? Pretty London Station colored. Pretty London Station colored. Just saying. So that's cool. I will be getting my hands on those because I am a backer. I'm a backer, and I'll be paying it off. Paying it off as I go. Couldn't handle it, huh? That's too bad. Starfinder wasn't unlocking. Will never happen again in NR. Yeah, I know it's interesting when they talk about. I say they, like designers in the broader scope of things, talking about how the realities of genre change between fantasy and sci-fi makes for some interesting like friction points, because sci-fi is a lot about ranged weaponry, isn't it? Whether it's ship-to-ship combat or like, you know, like you think like Mass Effect, you know, everybody's running around with guns because you're like, why would you be meleeing in a technological future? It's all about guns and range, and flight, I think, is a little more accessible with jetpacks and all sorts of all this crazy stuff that like affects the balance of a game. And so I don't know if that was what you guys experienced in NR, if it was a balance issue that it just couldn't vibe, but I don't know. So anyway, what else do we want to discuss? So this book is adding 156 new Eldamon, and I thought the first book only had 152, so it's doubling the amount of critters you get to choose from, the amount of little imbued powers you get to choose from, even if you're an elemental avatar. They're also doing this. They future-proofed this. If you read the Eldamon book, there's mention of it in there about I don't know if it's in the rarity section or where it is, but it talks about that there are traits where you cannot start with certain Eldamon no matter what. But none of those traits showed up in the book. So I was like, wait, hold on. And I think I even messaged on the Discord, and Mark was like, oh yeah, that's future-proofing for something else. So they're adding 39 legendary Eldamon, each with their own backstory, history, rules, and adventure overview. That's really cool. New elemental powers, we would expect that. New elemental magic items attuned to each element for Eldamon. Let me zoom in on this a little bit better. New elemental lore, commentary. This guy, Professor Portobello, because I guess you got to have a mushroom guy. I don't know. Free digital files, tokens, etc. You get a rainbow horse, because you got a bunch of testimonials, etc., etc. Of note, they were very clear that this is a first for for combat, because this Eldamon Legends product is not standalone. You cannot buy Eldamon Legends and use it. You have to have the Eldamon book itself in order to even use Legends. So this was kind of a pilot for them to be like, at best, we're going to get an equal audience to who bought Eldamon in the first place. Which actually they could improve upon that, because if people see content like this and they're like, oh, I completely missed this 2 years ago, I didn't realize how cool it was. hey, thanks. Give me a shout out. So they could potentially exceed and do better, but there was that like, I don't know. Like, are we going to be able to do this? Because this is going to be the testing ground for, do we have enough of a base to make that third product, which Mark has also said might have additional classes that interface with this power system as well. So people are theorizing, like, what if it's a magic item crafter who crafts things that are imbued with these power sets or something? We don't know what it's going to be. I'm sure they have their tight-lipped ideas. But they took a chance on this, and it's working, which is great. So in this Kickstarter, you can get, of course, the original book with legends. And let's see, what else is cool? Here's some of the new guys. We got like a Sphinx cat that turns into a bigger Sphinx cat that turns into an even bigger Sphinx cat. Pretty regal looking. Got a spider that gets too big for comfort, probably. Dragon guy. There's your chart that we talked about. And there's your graphs. And there is there's a free sample that actually has the classes themselves, and I think you can, I don't remember, I got it a long time ago. It's definitely, supports level 1 play, but I kind of thought it supported play up to level 3. I might be wrong, but that's for free, so come here and get that. Look at this guy, though. Look at this little guy. How could you hate this shoe? Look at this guy. Look at its eyes. It just wants your love. Can you withhold your love from that face? Can you even do it? This guy's not a crook. First thing I thought about this when I saw this one was Richard Nixon. Here's the cards I was talking about. So these are dry/wet erase. See, that's what threw me off. It's both. And then you can use these at the table if you're tracking this stuff in person, which would be really helpful. What else? They're tarot size. That's cool. And so they've made a card deck for the originals and then a card deck for the expansion. You wanted to be dead. You're a monster. You're a monster shoe. Nobody could kill such a sweet creature. But yeah, they're going to release 13 separate little PDFs, and they're going to be 12 to 20 pages, I think, is what it said. 18 to 20 pages. Billy to Spider Son. And then we already looked at the release schedule. Still so sad that Force is... Gotta wait all the way till February for Force. I'll endure. And then I just got all excited about Electricity. That's not coming out till January for extra stuff. That was actually something that I thought about while we were looking at the Eldamon entries, is the pre-built power sets are not going to have the new powers in them. So I wonder how they're going to deal with that. Maybe it's just, the Legends ones are the ones that have the new powers in their built-in kind of power set, but that's all right. I don't know if I want to know. Did you target them judiciously and take them out? Poor animal companions. I've almost lost my horse a couple times in New Dawn. That was intense. But I was like, that's good roleplay fodder. If Hanlon's horse dies, it's good roleplay fodder. I can survive that. And the final book in fall of 27. So we're a year and a half out from actually having the book, which is a bummer. No AI art. Good job, guys. Extras, dice, Do you need dice? I mean, people love dice, but do you need them? Custom GM screen, which contains all the Eldamon charts. So this is actually really neat. If you're doing an Eldamon campaign, it's going to have like is there an Eldamon here chart all right on the screen. The sheep is cute. Oh my god. This has been recorded forever. This is your guy here? This is your guy? Yeah, you did. You killed an alternate version of my horse from the future. That was funny. Ike's messaged me, and he's like, hey, so I realized I probably should check with you about this. Are you okay if I do a thing with copper? It's not going to actually be copper. And I was like, yeah, sounds interesting. Go for it. And it was a demon wearing a horse as a skin, as you do. All right, scrolling. They did announce some stretch goals. So there is a Eldamon Arena Minis game, Battle Tactical Minis War game that is already in development that they revealed. So this stretch goal is for that to be funded, but it's not part of this Kickstarter, I don't think. It's for people in this Kickstarter to get beta access to some of the rules, pretty sure. Oh, all right. We found your weak spot. It's the sheep. And I don't know what this is, this one-page rules Eldamon army. So, one-page rules Age of Fantasy miniatures war game. Hope that's cool for people who like it. Good for you. And they'll probably release more stretch goals if they continue to go up. And then you got your pledge tiers. Yada, 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 yada. Big money, big money, big money. And is that it? That is it. That's all you need to know. 122K. Oh, so they haven't unlocked that second stretch goal yet. So we'll see. I remember the math on Kickstarters was like you tend to get a third. This math might be entirely wrong. You get a third of your backers in the first 48 hours. You get maybe another third in like the last 24, and then the other third in the middle. So this could I'm probably wrong about that. If that's correct, and it's probably wrong, it sounds wrong as I'm saying it, then this could hit up to 360, which would be cool. I just want the next book. That's all I want, because I want to see what Mark is going to do with the music element. I want to see what he's going to do with the time element, the space element. And I know he's given some hints on certain things. I just don't remember what they are, because people were thinking space was going to be a lot of teleportation or something like that. And he's like, no, I have a different idea. Or maybe it's the other way around. And he's like, no, it's going to be teleportation. Basically, I don't know anything. Don't listen to me. Okay, it's 9 o'clock where I'm at. It's the end of the day. Nice solid little 2-hour stream about Eldamon. That's going to do it for me. Again, great to see friends here tonight in chat. If you're new to the channel, or if you're watching this later, this is London Station, and we do stuff like this, and we also do stuff like topical discussions, which we call the London Hour. We talked about romance for one stream. We talked about lone wolf characters and how to get around the psyche of what these players are after and how to meet their needs and make that not be an intrusive or a disruptive experience. This last Sunday, we did a stream entirely on the concept of violence in RPGs and how media and all these things that we consume are kind of dancing lightly around the actual horrors of actual violence, if you really imagine it, and how games have put tools in place to make that more bearable. So that was a really interesting discussion. I'm doing a live play of Astro Prisma, which is a solo science fiction tabletop role-playing game, kind of in a post-apocalyptic, post-galactic empire collapse kind of world where you're just exploring and discovering things. And that's been a really, really enriching narrative experience. And the few viewers who are really invested in that story have been having a really good time. Session 5, which we did last Saturday, was emotionally intense. It's like stuff's starting to happen. It's starting to get real. So Session 6 will be this Saturday morning. I might have had an idea for Sunday morning stream as well, which I think I was going to do something about. I think I was joking. I would call it free association in RPGs. The idea of not being attached to what is going to happen and letting the scene guide you and opening yourself up to, I guess in a kind of like an improv sense, like being open to what the scene is informing you and trying to let go a little bit so you can just kind of discover what happens. I mean, this would be like the play to find out concept in Powered by the Apocalypse games. So I might do that on Sunday. Next Wednesday night, I'm going to be playing Expedition 33 because a good friend bought that for me because they're like, you're going to like it and I want to see you play it. And I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So he's like, next Wednesday would be great. I'm like, okay, I'll schedule it. So I actually kind of have the whole week scheduled out for the first time in ever, which is weird. A lot of my friends who are streamers, they're in the VTuber space and they're really good about, I don't know if they're all really good about it, but they make these schedules every week and they post them and they're like, this is my schedule for the week. And you know exactly what they're going to do, what day and what time. And I made that graphic for myself, made it look all cool, all London Station branded and colored and everything like that. And it looks really nice. It looks really awesome and sexy. And then it was like the first week I streamed, I was like, nope, this is not how I'm going to be doing things, because I'm deciding sometimes the day before. I'm like, what am I inspired to stream about? So and we do it all. I've actually got all my streams written up on my calendar up here, keeping track of what I've done so far. So it's been a lot of fun. We've been at this for not even 2 months. And I think I've got, 27 streams so far in a great community that's coming around and always so participant, so great, so much, jeez, it's late. So much great participation in chat. Everybody humors me when I decided that I wanted to sing songs on streams. Everybody was incredibly supportive last Wednesday when I came out as trans, so that's wild. And it's been a really positive experience, a really great community. We do have a Discord through Patreon, and you can get pretty much everything you'd want to get out of that for the $3 tier. The little secret, the $1 tier is broken, and it also gives you everything you get from the $3 tier, and I haven't bothered to fix it because only one person's gotten it so far. So if that gets wildly taken advantage of, then I might change that. But come check us out. We've got great friends and a great community, people who are like-minded and very positive, supportive. I want to make a safe place for people who are going through whatever they're going through. I want to... I also write newsletters that I do monthly with little articles about my thoughts on this and that at different Patreon tiers. So it's a good group, and we're having a lot of fun together. So I encourage you, if you see this down the road, come check us out. All the links to everything is where you'd expect them to be. With that said, one of the last things I do, because I've made so many great friends out in the streaming community, right on, shoot, take care, I'll catch you later, is all these VTuber friends that I made over the last year. They're all on Twitch, and they all raid each other, and it's a big old love fest. And so I raid to them too because I like them. And one of my friends is streaming right now, and we're gonna go visit them. Hime Otsugi. They are a non-binary parrot VTuber, as they call themselves. They're doing a look at Legends of Akaroth, which is a game that was also just recently kickstarted. And so we're going to head over there, if you wouldn't mind, to come along with me and just say hi. And then if you want to drop off, that's okay. But we like to support our friends. And Hime is also the creator of Ballads of Dawn, which is a solo romantasy fantasy. That's redundant. Anyway, solo romantasy TTRPG that I have done a little bit of playtesting for, and I may do a full campaign of on this stream once I wrap up Astro Prisma. Furthermore, Hime, I found their channel because they did a playthrough of Astro Prisma. That was really great, and they're looking to do another playthrough of Astro Prisma, and so we're kind of coordinating that. We might line it up so that when mine ends, I kind of hand my Astro Prisma audience over to their channel and be like, go continue watching this game over here. So anyway, they're a good friend. They've been there for me in tough times, so I'm going to head over there, hang out in their chat for a little while. If you want to come along with, I'd appreciate it. Put their link in the chat right there. And with that said, like, subscribe, do all the things. Love you all so much. Hope you have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you next time on London Station. Take care.